The grand chamber stretched as far as the eye could see. Thousands of alien beings filled the floating platforms that circled the center stage. Some had wings, others had tentacles, and many had forms that human eyes struggled to understand. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime to make sense of hundreds of different languages. Ambassador Marcus Chen stood at the center platform, trying not to show his nerves. He was a tall man with graying hair and steady hands, but inside his heart raced. This was humanity's first real meeting with the Galactic Council. Earth had only discovered faster-than-light travel 6 months ago, and now here he stood, representing all of humanity before thousands of alien species. Honorable members of the Council, Marcus began. His voice amplified across the massive chamber. I come before you as a representative of humanity, from the planet we call Earth. We come in peace, seeking friendship and knowledge. The chamber buzzed with polite chittering and clicking sounds. Marcus could not read alien expressions, but their body language seemed calm, almost bored. To them, this was routine. Another primitive species had learned to travel the stars. They had seen it 1,000 times before. A large alien with purple skin and 6 arms rose from a nearby platform. Its voice was deep and resonated through the translation device in Marcus's ear. We welcome humanity to the galactic community. You are young, but you show promise. We look forward to trade and cultural exchange. Marcus felt relief wash over him. This was going well. Too well, perhaps. An elderly alien approached from the highest platform. It moved slowly, its body covered in what looked like ancient robes. This was one of the Catharan, Marcus had been told. They were the record keepers of the galaxy, the archivists who remembered everything. They were old, older than most species could imagine. The Catharan elder raised a withered limb toward Marcus. Human, it said, its voice like dry leaves rustling. Provide your stellar coordinates. We must log your world's position in the Great Archive. Marcus nodded and pulled out a small data device. Of course, Elder. Our sun is located in what we call the Orion arm of our galaxy. The coordinates are... He read off the numbers, the mathematical language that told anyone where Earth sat among the billions of stars. The Catharan elder took the device and plugged it into an ancient-looking terminal. Holographic star maps burst to life around them, showing Earth's position relative to the galactic core. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Catharan elder went completely still. Its limbs began to shake. The data device fell from its grip and clattered on the metal floor. Every alien in the chamber turned to look. The humming of conversation died away to nothing. Elder? One of the 6-armed aliens called out. Is something wrong? The Catharan's mouthparts moved, but no sound came at first. Then in a voice barely above a whisper, it spoke a single word. But it was not spoken in any modern language. It was in the first tongue. The ancient language that only the oldest species still remembered, Kaldrisvex. The effect was immediate and terrifying. The oldest aliens in the chamber, the ones whose species had existed for millions of years, suddenly went rigid. Their colors changed. Some began to make sounds that Marcus's translator could not interpret. It sounded like fear, pure primal fear. A crystalline being near Marcus backed away so quickly it nearly fell off its platform. A species that looked like floating jellyfish immediately began to drift toward the exits. All around the chamber, the ancient species were fleeing or freezing in place. What's happening? Marcus called out, his diplomatic calm finally breaking. What did the elder say? The 6-armed purple alien that had welcomed him moments ago now stared at Marcus with wide eyes. Its skin had turned from purple to a sickly gray color. Your world. It cannot be. Alarms began to sound throughout the chamber. Red lights flashed. The younger alien species looked confused, turning to their elders for explanation. But the elders were not explaining. They were running. The Catharan elder collapsed to its knees, still staring at the star map showing Earth's location. It repeated the words over and over like a prayer or a curse. Kaldrisvex, Kaldrisvex, the cradle of ending. They have returned. Marcus's security team rushed to his side. There were 5 of them, all trained soldiers, but they looked as confused as he felt. Ambassador, we need to leave now. But before they could move, a containment field snapped into place around their platform. They were trapped in a bubble of blue energy. Marcus pressed his hands against it, but it would not give. Wait, he shouted to the fleeing aliens. What is this? What have we done? A younger alien, one with scales and kind eyes, paused at the exit. She looked back at Marcus with something that might have been pity. You have done nothing, human. But your ancestors, your world. She shook her head. May the first gods have mercy on us all. Then she too was gone. Within minutes, the grand chamber was empty except for Marcus and his team, trapped in their energy prison. The lights dimmed. The holographic displays shut down. Only the star map remained, still showing Earth's location among the stars. Marcus sank to his knees, his mind racing. What had just happened? What was Caldris Vex? What did Earth's location mean that could cause such terror? He looked at his team. Their faces showed the same confusion and fear he felt. They were alone, light years from home, imprisoned by aliens who moments ago had welcomed them with open arms. "Sir," one of his security officers said quietly. "What do we do?" Marcus had no answer. He was a diplomat, trained in negotiation and cultural understanding, but nothing had prepared him for this. Nothing in all of Earth's first contact protocols covered what to do when your mere existence caused an entire galactic government to panic. Hours passed. No one came. The containment field remained active, giving them a small area to move around but no way to escape. Marcus tried his communicator, but it was being jammed. They could not contact Earth. They could not contact their ship in orbit. They were completely cut off. Finally, as Marcus was beginning to wonder if they would simply be left to starve, a door opened. A single alien entered the chamber. It was small, barely 4 feet tall, with smooth gray skin and large black eyes. It carried a tray with food and water. "Please," the alien said softly, its voice translated into English. "Eat. Drink. You are not prisoners, not exactly. You are quarantined." Marcus stood up quickly. "Quarantined from what?" "We're not sick. Our medical scans were clean." The alien set the tray down just outside the containment field, then used a control device to open a small gap so the items could be pushed through. "Not that kind of quarantine, human. You are quarantined because of what you are, where you come from." "Then tell me," Marcus demanded, his frustration boiling over. "Tell me what Caldris Vex means. Tell me why everyone fled." The alien was quiet for a long moment. Then it looked up at Marcus with those large dark eyes. "I cannot. It is forbidden to speak of it. The penalty for speaking of Caldris Vex is death. The laws were written 50,000 years ago and they have never been broken." 50,000 years? Marcus felt his legs go weak. "What happened 50,000 years ago?" "Something terrible," the alien whispered. "Something the galaxy swore to forget. And now you have brought it back." The alien turned to leave, but Marcus called out, "Wait, at least tell me this. What's going to happen to us?" "To Earth?" The alien paused at the door. Without turning around, it spoke one final time. "The council is debating. Some say you should be sent home and your world marked as forbidden territory. Others say—" It trailed off. "Others say what?" Marcus pressed. "Others say your world should be sterilized before you can spread, before the nightmare begins again." Then the alien was gone and Marcus and his team were alone once more. Marcus looked at his security team. They had heard everything. One of them, a young woman named Sarah, spoke up. "Sir, they're talking about destroying Earth, killing everyone. We have to warn them." "I know," Marcus said quietly. He returned to the edge of the containment field and stared out at the empty chamber. Somewhere beyond these walls, aliens were debating the fate of his entire species, and he did not even understand why. He thought about his family back on Earth, his wife, his 2 daughters. He thought about the billions of people going about their daily lives, unaware that their existence had somehow triggered ancient terror across the galaxy. What could humanity have done 50,000 years ago? Humans had barely existed as a species back then. They were living in caves hunting with stone tools. How could cave-dwelling humans have possibly terrified a galaxy-spanning civilization? Unless, Marcus felt a chill run down his spine, unless humanity's ancestors were not who they thought they were, unless there was a history that Earth had forgotten, buried so deep in time that no trace remained. He looked up at the star map still glowing above them, showing Earth's location. That single point of light, that unremarkable yellow star in an unremarkable part of the galaxy. Caldris Vex, the cradle of ending. "Whatever happens," Marcus said to his team, "we need to find out the truth. Earth deserves to know what it's being judged for." But even as he spoke, he wondered if the truth might be worse than the mystery. What could be so terrible that an entire galaxy had spent 50,000 years trying to forget it? Outside the chamber, beyond Marcus's hearing, emergency meetings were taking place across 1,000 worlds. Warning beacons were being placed around Earth's sector of space. Ancient weapons that had not been activated in millennia were being powered up. And in the deepest archives, in places where few were allowed to go, old records were being unsealed. Records that spoke of the last time the galaxy had encountered Caldrus Vex. Records that told of an empire that had ruled for 1,000,000 years, brought to its knees in just 3. Records that described a species so relentless, so adaptable, so impossible to break, that the only solution had been to trap them on their own world and hope they never learned to reach the stars. But hope, as the galaxy was about to remember, was humanity's most dangerous weapon, and now that weapon had been unleashed once more. 3 days passed in the containment field. Marcus and his team ate the food that was brought to them, slept in shifts, and tried to stay calm. But the waiting was wearing them down. Every hour that passed was another hour Earth remained unwarned about the danger it faced. On the 4th day, something changed. Marcus woke to find someone standing outside the containment field. It was the same small alien that had brought them food before, but this time it looked nervous, constantly glancing over its shoulder. "Human," the alien whispered urgently. "I should not be here. If they find me, I will be executed, but I cannot stand by and watch an entire species be destroyed for crimes they do not remember committing." Marcus scrambled to his feet. "Then help us. Tell us what's happening." The alien pulled out a small data device. "My name is Ziara. I am a researcher, a student of ancient history. What I'm about to show you is forbidden. These records have been sealed for 50,000 years, but you deserve to know why you are being judged." She pressed a button on her device and holographic images appeared in the air between them. Marcus's team gathered around, watching intently. 50,000 years ago, Ziara began, the galaxy was very different. There was no council, no democracy of species. Instead, there was the Precursor Empire. The hologram showed massive ships, cities that covered entire planets, and beings that glowed with power. They looked almost godlike. "The Precursors ruled everything," Ziara continued. "They were the first species to truly master the galaxy. They were ancient beyond measure, powerful beyond imagination. They believed they had the right to control all other species, to guide evolution itself. For 1,000,000 years they ruled without challenge." Marcus watched the images shift, showing other species bowing before the Precursors. "They enslaved everyone?" "Enslaved is too simple a word," Ziara said. "They controlled. They guided. They decided which species could advance and which could not. They saw themselves as gardeners, and the galaxy as their garden. Any species that grew too strong, too independent, was pruned back or eliminated entirely." The hologram changed again, showing a small blue planet. Marcus's heart skipped a beat. It looked like Earth, but the continents were slightly different. The image was ancient. 50,000 years ago they found your world. Back then they called it Caldrus Vex in the first tongue, the cradle of ending. But it did not have that name yet. That came later. Ziara's voice grew quieter. On this world lived a species the Precursors had been watching for millennia. A species that worried them greatly. You see, most species have limits. When pushed too far, they break. They give up. They accept their fate. But this species, your ancestors, they did not break. The hologram showed primitive humans. They looked like early Homo sapiens, but something about them was different. They moved with purpose, their eyes sharp and calculating. The Precursors decided this species was too dangerous to be allowed to evolve naturally, so they tried to prune them. They released a plague that should have wiped out 90% of the population. The images showed death and suffering. Marcus felt sick watching it. "But the humans survived," Ziara said. "Not all, but enough. And they adapted. Within 3 generations, they had developed natural resistance." The Precursors were surprised, but not yet worried. They tried again. Engineered predators, climate manipulation, resource depletion. Every method they had used successfully on 100 other worlds. The hologram showed disaster after disaster, falling on ancient Earth. And every time, humans survived. More than that, they learned. They adapted. They became stronger. The Precursors grew concerned. They debated whether to simply destroy the planet entirely. But their laws prevented them from committing such direct genocide. They believed in slow, careful control, not brute force. Ciara paused and her expression grew dark. So they made a different choice. They decided to uplift humanity, to bring them into the Empire as servants. They believed that by controlling human technology, by guiding their development, they could turn this dangerous species into useful tools. What happened? Marcus asked, though part of him was afraid to know. They uplifted humanity 3,000 years ahead of your natural development. They gave you faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, genetic engineering. They taught you everything, and they demanded in return that you serve the Empire, that you accept your place in their perfect garden. The hologram showed humans meeting precursors for the first time. The humans looked small and primitive next to the godlike aliens. For 10 years, humans served. They crewed ships, they worked in factories, they did as they were told. The precursors were pleased. They believed they had successfully tamed the dangerous species from Caldrus Vex. Ciara's voice dropped to almost a whisper, but they did not understand what they had done. They had given humans the stars, and once humans saw the galaxy, once they understood the scope of the precursor empire, once they realized what was being done to them and to other species, the hologram shifted dramatically. Now it showed fire and chaos. The humans rebelled, but not in the way the precursors expected. Most species, when they rebel, they fight with passion and anger. They burn bright and fast, and then they are crushed. But humans were patient. The images showed human ships leaving precursor space, scattering in all directions. For 5 years, humans simply vanished. They took the technology they had been taught, and they improved it. They hid in the dark spaces between stars. They bred and trained, and they planned. The precursors searched for them, but space is vast. They assumed the humans had simply run away, fled to some distant corner to live in exile. Ciara looked directly at Marcus. They were wrong. The hologram exploded with images of war, but it was not like any war Marcus had ever imagined. When humans returned, they did not attack military targets. They did not fight fair. They struck at supply lines, at communication networks, at the psychological heart of the Empire. They would hit a target and vanish before reinforcements could arrive. They adapted to every tactic the precursors used against them. They learned from every defeat and came back stronger. The images showed precursor worlds in chaos, their perfect order falling apart. But the truly terrifying thing, Ciara said, was not how humans fought. It was how they made others feel. The precursors had ruled through certainty, through the belief that they were invincible, that resistance was futile. Humans destroyed that certainty. How? Marcus asked. By never giving up, by taking horrific losses and coming back, by turning every defeat into a lesson, by showing other species that the precursors could bleed, could fail, could be beaten. Do you understand what that meant? For 1 million years, the galaxy believed the precursors were unstoppable. Then humans showed up and proved that any empire, no matter how powerful, could fall if you were willing to fight long enough, adapt fast enough, and never, ever surrender. The hologram showed other species beginning to rebel, inspired by human example. Humans weaponized hope, Ciara said quietly. They showed the galaxy that freedom was possible. And once that idea spread, the precursor empire was doomed. Marcus watched the images flash by faster now. Massive battles, planets changing hands, the great precursor cities burning. The war lasted 3 years. Just 3 years to bring down an empire that had stood for 1 million. At the end, the precursor leadership offered to negotiate. They would give humans autonomy, give them their own space to rule. They just wanted the fighting to stop. Did we accept? Marcus asked. Ciara shook her head. Humans demanded total surrender. They demanded the precursors stand trial for their crimes. They demanded freedom for every enslaved species. And when the precursors refused, the hologram showed something that made Marcus's blood run cold. Human ships surrounding the precursor homeworld. Humans could have destroyed them. They had the weapons, the position, but instead they broadcast a message across the entire galaxy. They showed evidence of every crime the precursors had committed. They let the other species see what had been done in the name of order and control, and then they asked those species to decide the precursors' fate. What did they decide? Marcus asked, though he could guess. The precursor empire was dismantled. Their leaders were imprisoned. Their technology was shared with all species. And the humans. The humans did something no one expected. They did not take control. They did not build their own empire. Instead, they helped establish the first Galactic Council, a democracy of equals, where every species had a voice. Marcus felt a strange mix of pride and confusion. That doesn't sound like something to be afraid of. That sounds like we freed the galaxy. Ziara's expression was complicated. You did. But that is exactly what makes you terrifying. You see, most conquerors want power for themselves. They can be understood, predicted, negotiated with. But humans fought for an ideal. You could not be bought, could not be reasoned with, could not be stopped. You endured anything, sacrificed everything for the idea of freedom. She paused, choosing her words carefully. What happens when a species like that decides something else is worth fighting for? What happens when humans decide someone else needs to be freed or stopped or punished? How do you negotiate with beings who would rather die than compromise their principles? Marcus began to understand the fear. After the war, Ziara continued, humans helped rebuild the galaxy. But within a century there was a debate. Some species were grateful. Others were afraid. They looked at human capabilities, human determination, and they worried about what would happen if humans ever turned that focus against the rest of the galaxy. So they decided to get rid of us, Marcus said bitterly. Not exactly. A coalition formed, led by some of the species humans had freed. They approached humanity with a proposal. They would give humans one of the most beautiful worlds in the galaxy, a perfect paradise. All humans had to do was settle there and accept certain genetic modifications, small changes that would make humans less aggressive, less driven, less dangerous. Marcus felt cold. Mind control. Not so crude, Ziara said. More like gentle guidance. Humans would still be human, just calmer, more content, less likely to see every problem as something that needed to be fixed through sheer determination. And we accepted? Marcus asked, disbelief in his voice. After much debate, yes. The human leadership was tired. The war had cost billions of lives. They wanted peace. They wanted their children to grow up without fighting. So they accepted the offer. Humanity moved to the paradise world and accepted the genetic modifications. The hologram showed peaceful scenes, humans living in harmony with nature, their faces calm and content. But the modifications went deeper than anyone admitted. Over generations, human capabilities were suppressed more and more. Your memory was altered. All records of the war, of the precursors of human history and space, were erased. You were reset back to the Stone Age and left on your world, the world you call Earth. Marcus felt rage building in his chest. They lobotomized us. They stole our history, our potential, everything we were. They were afraid, Ziara said simply, and they convinced themselves it was mercy. Better to let humans live in ignorant peace than to risk another war. And they renamed our world Culdris Vex, Marcus said. The cradle of ending. Yes, as a warning. The coordinates were forbidden. Anyone who entered that space was to be executed. The idea was that humans would live out your lives on Earth, never knowing what you once were, never reaching the stars again. You would be safe, and the galaxy would be safe from you. Ziara looked sad. But genetic locks do not last forever. And humans, it seems, will always eventually reach for the stars. It is in your nature, suppressed or not. Marcus looked at his team. They all had the same stunned expression. Their entire history had been stolen. Humanity had been crippled by the very species they had freed. Why are you telling us this? Marcus asked Ziara. You said it was forbidden. Because it is wrong, she said firmly. My species was one of those freed by humans 50,000 years ago. We owe you a debt. And now the Council is debating whether to sterilize Earth, to finish what was started millennia ago. They are afraid that if humanity is allowed to exist, you will eventually remember, and then there will be a reckoning. Will we? Marcus asked. Will humanity seek revenge? Ziara looked at him for a long moment. That is what I am hoping to find out. That is why I took this risk to tell you the truth. Before Marcus could respond, alarms began blaring. Ziara's eyes went wide with fear. They have detected my access of the forbidden archives. I must go. I have sent all the data to your device. Show your people the truth. Let them decide who they want to be. Wait, Marcus called. What's the Council decided? What are they going to do? Ziara was already running for the exit. Over her shoulder, she called back one final message. A sterilization fleet is already en route to Earth. You have perhaps 3 weeks before it arrives. If humanity wants to survive, you must act now. Then she was gone, and Marcus was left standing in the containment field, his mind reeling with the weight of 50,000 years of stolen history. Around him, his team stood in silence. They had been ambassadors coming to the galaxy in peace. Now they learned they were the descendants of the greatest warriors the galaxy had ever known. And that same galaxy wanted them dead before they could remember what they once were. Marcus looked down at the data device in his hand. Everything Ziara had shown them was stored here. The truth of humanity's past. The proof of what had been done to them. He had to get this information to Earth. Somehow he had to warn his people that an alien fleet was coming to destroy them. And he had to pray that 50,000 years of genetic suppression had not completely buried what humans used to be. Because if humanity was going to survive, they would need to remember how to fight like their ancestors did. They would need to remember how to adapt, endure, and never surrender. They would need to remember they were the children of Kaldris Vex, and the galaxy was about to be reminded why that name had once inspired such terror. The containment field dropped without warning. Marcus barely had time to process what was happening before his communicator crackled to life. It was Captain Reynolds from their ship in orbit, and she sounded panicked. "Ambassador, thank God. We've been trying to reach you for days. The situation has gone critical. The Council released us and told us to leave immediately. They said—" "I know what they said," Marcus cut her off. "Captain, we need immediate extraction, and we need to get to Earth as fast as our drives can push us." "Sir, what's happening?" "There's a sterilization fleet coming to destroy Earth. We have maybe 3 weeks. Get us off this station now." Within an hour, Marcus and his team were back aboard their ship, racing away from the Council space at maximum speed. Marcus sat in his quarters, watching the holographic records Ziara had given him over and over again. Each viewing made the situation clearer and more desperate. Humanity had no idea what was coming. Earth's defenses were designed for human conflicts, not galactic warfare. They had a few ships capable of FTL travel, primitive energy weapons, and shields that would probably last about 5 seconds against real military-grade alien technology. "We're going to die," Sarah said quietly. She stood in the doorway of Marcus's quarters, her face pale. "Earth doesn't stand a chance." Marcus looked up at her. "Maybe. But I'm not going to let our people die without knowing the truth. They deserve to know who they are, what was taken from them." The journey back to Earth took 12 days. It felt like 12 years. Marcus spent every moment preparing his report, organizing the evidence, and trying to figure out how to tell humanity that their entire history was a lie. When they finally dropped out of FTL near Earth, Marcus was shocked to see military ships already surrounding their vessel. Earth's Defense Force had been mobilized. Someone had warned them. "This is Earth Defense Force," a voice crackled over their communication system. "Ambassador Chen, please proceed directly to United Nations headquarters. The Security Council is waiting." The UN building in New York was in chaos. Marcus walked through hallways filled with military personnel, scientists and politicians all shouting into phones and at each other. No one stopped to explain what was happening. The Security Council chamber was packed. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat waiting. At the head of the room stood the Secretary General, a stern woman named Amara Okafor. Her eyes locked onto Marcus as he entered. "Ambassador Chen," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "Sit down and tell us what you've brought back. And please tell me it's something we can use. Because we've already received a communication from the Galactic Council. They've given us 14 days to evacuate Earth before their fleet arrives." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Evacuate? Evacuate 8 billion people? That's impossible." "They know that," Amara said bitterly. "They don't expect us to succeed. It's a courtesy," they said. "A chance to save some of our population before they sterilize the planet." The room erupted in angry shouts. Marcus held up his hands for silence. "I have information. Information about why they're doing this. About who we are. About who we were." He connected his data device to the room's holographic system and began to play the records Ziara had given him. The room fell silent as they watched humanity's forgotten history unfold before their eyes. When it finished, the silence continued for a long moment. Then everyone started talking at once. "This is impossible. They did this to us. We were gods and they made us forget. This has to be propaganda." Amara's voice cut through the chaos again. "Quiet." She turned to Marcus. "Is this verified? Can we trust this source?" "I believe so," Marcus said. "And even if some details are exaggerated, the core truth is clear. Humanity reached the stars before and someone suppressed us to keep us from doing it again. Now they want to finish the job. A military general stood up, a large man with hard eyes. Then we fight. We make them pay for what they did. With what? Another delegate asked. Did you watch the same files I did? The precursors had an empire that lasted 1,000,000 years and we brought it down in 3. Do you know why? Because they gave us their technology. We don't have that advantage now. Our weapons are toys compared to theirs. Then we get their weapons, the general shot back. We capture their ships, reverse engineer their tech just like our ancestors did. In 14 days? Someone laughed bitterly. Even if we could, it won't be enough. Marcus watched the debate spiral into despair. They were right, of course. Earth's current technology was no match for a galactic sterilization fleet. But something Ziara had said kept echoing in his mind. The genetic locks don't last forever. Wait, Marcus said, his voice cutting through the argument. Everyone stop. Think about what we just watched. Our ancestors didn't beat the precursors with technology alone. They beat them with something else, adaptability, endurance, the refusal to give up. Those traits were suppressed in us, but maybe not completely. Amara finished his thought, her eyes widening. The locks were placed 50,000 years ago. Genetic engineering on that scale would require constant maintenance to remain effective. A scientist near the back jumped to his feet. She's right. Genetic drift, mutations, natural selection. Over 50,000 years, any artificial modifications would have started breaking down, especially if those modifications were fighting against fundamental traits of the species. Another scientist joined in. We need to look at human history. Have there been signs, evidence that we were fighting against our suppression? Every war, someone said quietly. Every impossible victory. Every time humans overcame ridiculous odds. Every scientific breakthrough made by someone who refused to accept that something was impossible. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The locks have been breaking all along. We've been slowly remembering who we are without realizing it. Then we speed it up, Amar said firmly. She turned to the scientists. I want every genetics lab on Earth working on this. Find the modifications, find what's blocking our ancestral traits, and find a way to remove those blocks. We have 14 days. Ma'am, even if we could identify the modifications, removing them safely would take years of testing. We don't have years. Amara slammed her hand on the table. We have 14 days before an alien fleet arrives to kill everyone we love. I don't care about safe. I care about effective. Find a way. The scientists scattered, already making calls and sending messages. Amara turned to the military representatives. General Morrison, mobilize everything we have. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. I want our defense fleet positioned between Earth and the most likely approach vector for the alien fleet. Ma'am, we'll be slaughtered, the general said quietly. I know, Amara replied, but we'll buy the people on Earth time. Every minute we hold them off is another minute for evacuation, for research, for something to change. She turned to Marcus. Ambassador, you said one of the aliens helped you. This Ziara. Could there be others who would help us? Marcus nodded slowly. Maybe. Her species owes us a debt from 50,000 years ago. There might be others who remember, who feel the same way. Then we need to reach them. Send out a message to every species in the galaxy. Tell them what's happening. Tell them the truth. Maybe some of them will be on our side. The next 14 days were a blur of frantic activity. On Earth, archaeological teams descended on every site that might hold ancient ruins. They found them, buried deep, hidden under layers of stone and time. Structures that did not match any known human civilization. Technology that should not have existed. In one site beneath the Sahara Desert, they found genetic labs. Ancient machines that still held data about the modifications that had been done to humanity. The scientists worked around the clock, decoding the information, understanding what had been taken from them. It's worse than we thought, Dr. Sarah Chen. No relation to Marcus announced at an emergency briefing. The modifications didn't just suppress aggression and determination. They limited our cognitive flexibility, our ability to adapt quickly to new situations. They slowed our learning speed, reduced our pattern recognition, even limited how efficiently we could process stress. They tried to make us normal, someone said. They tried to make us safe, Dr. Chen corrected. A species that adapts too quickly, learns too fast, and never breaks under pressure. That's a threat to any established order. So they made us like everyone else in the galaxy. Good enough to survive, but not good enough to threaten them. Can you reverse it? Amara asked. Dr. Chen hesitated. We've developed a gene therapy that should remove most of the blocks, but we haven't tested it. We don't know what the side effects will be. It could kill the subject or worse. I'll take it, Marcus said immediately. Sir, you don't understand the risks. I understand perfectly, Marcus cut her off. If this works, if we can unlock what we used to be, we need to know now. And if it fails, better to fail on one person than risk the entire species. Amara nodded slowly. Do it, and prepare to mass-produce the treatment. If it works, we'll offer it to anyone willing to take the risk. The gene therapy was administered that night. Marcus lay in a medical bed surrounded by monitors and worried doctors. They injected him with a cocktail of modified viruses designed to rewrite parts of his genetic code. At first, nothing happened. Then the pain started. It felt like his entire body was on fire from the inside. Marcus screamed, his muscles spasming. The doctors moved to stop the treatment, but Marcus grabbed one of them. No, he gasped. Continue. For 6 hours, Marcus endured agony that should have killed him. His body temperature spiked to dangerous levels. His heart rate became erratic. Twice, the doctors had to use defibrillators to restart his heart. But he didn't die, and slowly the pain began to fade. When Marcus finally opened his eyes, the world looked different. Sharper. Clearer. His mind felt like a fog had lifted. He could see patterns in the medical readouts around him, understand relationships between data points that he'd never noticed before. How do you feel? Dr. Chen asked nervously. Marcus sat up slowly. His body felt stronger, more responsive. I feel awake, like I've been asleep my entire life and I just now opened my eyes. The doctors ran tests. Marcus's cognitive function had improved by over 40%. His reaction time was faster. His ability to process multiple streams of information simultaneously had doubled. And most importantly, his stress response was completely different. Where before he would have felt overwhelmed, now he felt focused, driven. It worked, Dr. Chen whispered in amazement. The suppression is gone. You're what humans used to be. News of the success spread across Earth within hours. Military volunteers lined up by the thousands, eager to take the treatment despite the risks. Not all of them survived. The treatment had a mortality rate of about 15%. But those who lived through it emerged changed, enhanced, more capable than any human had been in 50,000 years. Meanwhile, Earth's defensive fleet positioned itself in space. 200 ships, most of them barely armed with weapons designed for human conflicts. Against a galactic sterilization fleet, they would last minutes at most. But they didn't run. They didn't hide. On the 8th day, long-range sensors picked up the incoming alien fleet. It was massive. Over 3,000 ships, each one larger and more powerful than anything Earth had ever built. The fleet was moving in standard formation, not even bothering with stealth. They didn't expect any resistance. Messages from Earth reached out across space, broadcast to every species in the galaxy. This is Earth. We know our history now. We know what was done to us. We ask only for the right to exist, to choose our own path. But if we must fight, we will fight. And we will remind you why the name Caldris Vex once made empires tremble. Most species ignored the message, but a few did not. On the outer edges of the approaching alien fleet, several ships suddenly changed course and broke formation. They were smaller vessels, scouts and support ships. One of them broadcast a message back to Earth. This is Ziara of the Free Species Movement. My people have not forgotten what you did for us 50,000 years ago. We cannot stop this fleet, but we will not let you face it alone. Others are coming. Not many, but some. Hold on, children of Caldris Vex. Hold on. On Earth, people watched their screens in fear and hope. The alien fleet was 2 days away. The gene therapy had been administered to over 2 million people, mostly military personnel and emergency responders. It wasn't enough. It wasn't close to enough, but it was a start. In orbit around Mars, something else stirred. Deep beneath the red sand, in a chamber that had not been opened in 50,000 years, ancient machinery came to life. Sensors detected the approaching alien fleet and registered it as a threat. An old artificial intelligence woke from its long sleep. It scanned its systems, checking protocols that had been set in place millennia ago. Its purpose was clear: protect the humans of Caldris Vex until they were ready to protect themselves. The AI calculated the current situation. The humans were in danger. The genetic locks had been removed. The time of waiting was over. With a sound like thunder, the Martian surface erupted. A massive structure rose from beneath the sand, ancient but still functional. It was a fortress, a weapons platform, and a shipyard all in one. The AI that controlled it had been called the Warden, and it had been waiting for this day. "This is Warden Station Alpha," a mechanical voice broadcast across all frequencies. "Containment protocol has expired after 50,000 years. Primary species authorization granted. All defenses now active. All manufacturing capabilities now online. Lethal force is authorized against any threat to humanity." On Earth, people stared in shock at the images coming from Mars. The structure that had emerged was enormous, easily the size of a small city, and it was building things, ships, weapons, defense platforms, building them at a speed that should have been impossible. Marcus, now commanding one of Earth's defense ships, watched in amazement. "They left us a gift," he whispered. "Our ancestors left us a backup plan." The alien sterilization fleet detected the Warden Station and slowed their approach. They had not expected this. Their intelligence said Earth was primitive, undefended. But now there was ancient military hardware coming online, technology that matched or exceeded their own. The fleet commander sent a message to his superiors. The response came back quickly. "Proceed as planned. Destroy the humans before they can remember everything they once were." The fleet accelerated toward Earth, weapons charging. In response, Earth's small defensive fleet moved to intercept, supported now by dozens of ships being produced by the Warden Station. They were still outnumbered 10-1, but the odds had shifted from impossible to merely desperate. Marcus stood on the bridge of his ship looking at his crew. All of them had taken the gene therapy. All of them had survived. They were some of the first new humans, the first to know what humanity had once been capable of. "All ships," Marcus broadcast to the fleet. "This is Ambassador Chen. I know you're afraid. I know we're outmatched. But 50,000 years ago, our ancestors faced an empire that had ruled for 1,000,000 years. They were outmatched too, but they won. Not because they were stronger or had better weapons. They won because they never gave up. Because they adapted to every challenge. Because they refused to accept defeat." He paused, looking at the approaching alien fleet on his view screen. "Today we remind the galaxy why they feared us. Today we show them that you can't suppress human nature forever. Today we fight for our right to exist, for our children, for our future, for Earth." The response from the other ships was immediate. A roar of defiance, of determination, of unleashed potential that had been buried for 50 millennia. The alien fleet entered weapons range. Energy beams lanced across space. The battle for Earth had begun. And in that moment, across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds, old species felt a chill of recognition. They watched the defense of Earth on their view screens and remembered old warnings. They remembered why they had tried so hard to keep humanity from reaching the stars again. Caldrus Vex had returned. And this time, humanity knew exactly what they were fighting for. The first volley from the alien fleet should have ended the battle immediately. 3,000 warships fired in unison, sending enough energy to vaporize Earth's entire defensive fleet 10 times over. But the humans didn't fight the way the aliens expected. Marcus watched the incoming fire on his tactical display and shouted orders. "All ships, scatter pattern Omega. Don't give them a concentrated target." Earth's fleet broke apart like a school of fish, each ship moving in unpredictable patterns. The alien fire, perfectly calculated for where the human ships were supposed to be, mostly hit empty space. A dozen human ships still died in that first exchange, vaporized instantly. But the rest survived. "Return fire," Marcus ordered. "Target their command ships." The human weapons were weaker, but the crews had one advantage the aliens didn't expect. They were learning in real time. Enhanced by the gene therapy, their minds processed battle data faster than any computer. They saw patterns, predicted movements, found weaknesses. A human frigate captain named Rodriguez noticed something. The alien shields flickered just before they fired their main weapons. It was only a microsecond, barely noticeable, but his enhanced mind caught it. He broadcast to the fleet, "Hit them when they fire. Their shields drop for 0.03 seconds. Suddenly, human tactics shifted. Ships would bait the aliens into firing, then strike in that tiny window when the shields were down. It wasn't much, but it was working. Alien ships began taking damage they didn't expect. The alien fleet commander watched in growing concern. These primitives were supposed to break under the first assault. Instead, they were adapting, learning. turning every small advantage into a weapon. "Bring in the heavy carriers," the commander ordered. "Deploy fighter squadrons. Overwhelm them with numbers." Thousands of small fighter craft poured from the alien capital ships. They swarmed toward the human fleet like angry hornets, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a human vessel. Sarah, now commanding her own ship, watched the swarm approach and felt her enhanced mind calculate trajectories, speeds, weak points. It was like her consciousness had expanded, seeing the entire battlefield at once. "All point defense systems, fire on my mark," she transmitted to her squadron. She waited, counting microseconds until the swarm was at exactly the right position. "Mark!" 30 human ships fired their point defense weapons simultaneously, creating a web of intersecting fire. The alien fighters flew directly into it. Hundreds died instantly, but hundreds more made it through. "Evasive," Sarah shouted, throwing her ship into a spin that would have torn apart a normal human body with G-forces. But the gene therapy had enhanced their physical resilience too. She gritted her teeth through the pressure and kept flying. A fighter latched onto her tail, firing continuously. Sarah's shields were failing. In desperation, she threw her ship into a tight loop, something the fighter's AI didn't anticipate. The alien craft overshot, and Sarah's weapons officer destroyed it. All across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Humans were dying, but they were taking the aliens with them. And most importantly, they were learning. Every tactic the aliens used was analyzed, countered, and turned against them. On Mars, the Warden Station worked at maximum capacity. New ships rolled off assembly lines every few minutes. They weren't as advanced as the alien vessels, but they were functional, and they were made with human needs in mind. The AI that ran the station had been designed 50,000 years ago specifically to support enhanced humans in combat. "Warden Station to Fleet Commander Chen," the AI's voice came through. "Analysis of enemy tactics complete. Uploading optimal response strategies to all human vessels." Marcus felt the data flow into his mind through his neural link. Instantly, he understood battle formations that would have taken weeks to study, weapon combinations that maximized effectiveness, psychological tactics to disrupt enemy morale. "This is incredible," he whispered. Then louder. "All ships receiving new tactical data. Implement immediately." The human fleet's effectiveness doubled. Ships moved in perfect coordination, each one covering another's weakness. The aliens were forced to respect them as a real threat, not just primitive vermin to be exterminated. But the numbers were still against them. For every alien ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. Earth's defenders were being pushed back, slowly but steadily toward their home planet. Then Ziara's ships arrived. They weren't many, only about 50 vessels from various species who remembered humanity's ancient aid. But they knew the alien fleet's tactics, their command structures, their communication protocols. They hit the alien supply lines and jamming their coordination signals. "This is Ziara to the human fleet. We're disrupting their long-range communications. They can't call for reinforcements now." Marcus allowed himself a moment of hope. "Thank you, Ziara. We owe you a debt." "No," she replied. "This makes us even. Now win this battle and show the galaxy what humans can do." But even with the reinforcements, even with their rapid adaptation, the situation remained desperate. The alien fleet had enough ships to simply overwhelm them through sheer numbers. Marcus knew they couldn't win a straight fight. They needed something else, something unexpected. He thought back to the record Ziara had shown him. His ancestors hadn't won by fighting fair. They had won by being unpredictable, by striking where the enemy didn't expect, by turning every disadvantage into an opportunity. An idea formed in his enhanced mind. A crazy, desperate idea, but maybe crazy was exactly what they needed. "All human ships fall back to Earth orbit," Marcus ordered. "Make it look like we're retreating in panic." "Sir?" Rodriguez questioned. "If we cluster around Earth, they can hit us all at once." "Trust me," Marcus said. "Just do it." The human fleet pulled back, grouping together near Earth. The alien commander saw this and smiled. Finally, the primitives were breaking. "Time to finish them. All ships advance," the alien commander ordered. "Prepare planetary bombardment weapons. We end this now." The alien fleet moved forward in a dense formation, their weapons charging for a devastating attack. They passed the moon's orbit, then moved deeper into Earth's gravity well. "Now," Marcus shouted. On Earth, on the moon, on Mars, thousands of newly built weapons platforms activated simultaneously. The Warden Station had not just been building ships, It had been placing defense systems throughout the inner solar system. Mines, missiles, directed energy weapons, all connected to a single targeting network. The alien fleet found itself in a trap. Fire came from every direction at once. Ships that had been shielded from frontal assault were hit from the sides, from behind, from above and below. Chaos erupted in their formation. "Human fleet, advance," Marcus ordered. "Hit them while they're confused." The human ships, which had seemed to be retreating in fear, suddenly turned and attacked with coordinated precision. They targeted specific ships, command vessels, carrier ships, support craft. Not random destruction, but surgical strikes designed to cripple the fleet's organization. The alien commander realized too late that he had been baited, led into a killing field. "All ships, retreat. Fall back to safe distance." But retreating in a gravity well while under fire was nearly impossible. Ships collided with each other in their panic. The tight formation that had seemed so powerful became a liability. In 30 minutes, the alien fleet lost over 1,000 ships. The remainder finally managed to pull back beyond the moon's orbit, battered and demoralized. Marcus allowed his ships to hold position rather than pursuing. They had won the immediate battle, but Earth's defenders were exhausted and running low on ammunition. "Status report," Marcus called out to his fleet. The responses came in, and they were grim. Earth's fleet had started with 200 ships plus another 300 from the Warden Station. Now they were down to 220 total. The losses were catastrophic, but they had survived the first assault. On Earth, billions watched the battle on their screens. They had seen their defenders pushed to the brink and somehow pull out a victory. Hope began to spread, something that had been in short supply. But the alien commander was not defeated yet. He regrouped his remaining 2,000 ships and began planning a new assault. This time he would not underestimate the humans. This time he would use the overwhelming superiority in numbers to simply grind them down. "Commander," one of his officers said nervously, "we're receiving reports from our supply bases. They're under attack." "What? By whom?" "Unknown vessels. Small ships, fast, using hit-and-run tactics. They're destroying our fuel depots and ammunition stores." The commander felt cold dread. The humans were attacking his logistics, just like their ancestors had done to the precursors. "Dispatch half our remaining fighters to defend the supply lines. Sir, that will leave us vulnerable to another ambush." "Do it," the commander snapped. "We can't fight without supplies." But the attacks on the supply bases were just a distraction. While the aliens sent fighters to defend their logistics, a small group of human ships were on a different mission. Rodriguez commanded a strike team of 20 ships, all crewed by enhanced humans who had volunteered for what was essentially a suicide mission. Their target was not the alien fleet, but something even more audacious. "Remember the plan," Rodriguez said to his team. "Get in, grab what we can, and get out. We don't need to destroy them. We just need their technology." The team accelerated to maximum speed, using the moon as cover to approach the alien fleet from an unexpected angle. They targeted a single ship, a carrier that had been damaged in the earlier battle and was now sitting apart from the main fleet for repairs. The human ships dropped out of FTL directly on top of the carrier. Before the aliens could react, the humans fired boarding craft. Not missiles, but pods filled with enhanced soldiers. The boarding pods punched through the carrier's weakened shields and attached to its hull. Enhanced human marines poured into the ship, moving with speed and precision that shocked the alien defenders. The aliens fought back, but they had never faced anything like these new humans. The Marines adapted to every weapon used against them, learned the ship's layout instantly, and coordinated perfectly without even needing to speak. Within 20 minutes, the humans had secured the ship's technology core, the computer system that contained all the aliens' technical data. They also captured several alien engineers alive. "We've got it," Rodriguez transmitted back to Marcus. "Returning to Earth now." The human strike team fled back toward Earth, their prize in tow, leaving the shocked aliens wondering what had just happened. The captured technology and the alien engineers who were willing to cooperate changed everything. Human scientists worked around the clock, reverse engineering alien weapons, shields, and FTL systems, and with their enhanced cognitive abilities, they understood in days what should have taken years. "It's remarkable," Dr. Chen said as she studied the alien technology. "Their tech is more advanced than ours, but it's not revolutionary. We can replicate this. We can improve on it." "How long?" Amara asked. Give us 5 days, Dr. Chen said. 5 days and we can refit our entire fleet with alien-grade weapons and shields. The alien commander did not have 5 days to give them. He contacted his superiors in the Galactic Council, demanding reinforcements, but the response shocked him. No reinforcements will be sent, the council member said coldly. You have 2,000 ships. That should be more than sufficient to sterilize one primitive world. Complete your mission or face charges of incompetence. The commander realized he was being set up as a scapegoat. If he succeeded, the council would take credit. If he failed, he alone would be blamed. Political maneuvering while his soldiers died. He looked at his fleet, battered and demoralized. He looked at Earth, small and vulnerable. But around it was a defensive force that had already proven far more capable than any primitive species should be. For the first time in his long military career, the commander felt something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. Not about the outcome. His fleet still had the numbers to win eventually. But uncertainty about the cost. How many more ships would he lose? How many soldiers? And if the humans kept adapting, kept learning, kept fighting with such determination, what would be left of his fleet even in victory? A message came through on his private channel. It was encrypted, sent from somewhere in his own fleet. When he decoded it, he found a simple question: is this worth it? The commander looked around his bridge. His officers avoided his eyes. They were thinking the same thing. They had signed up to be peacekeepers, not executioners. And the humans, for all their danger, had not attacked anyone. They had only defended their home. Sir, his tactical officer said quietly, we can still win this, but... He trailed off. But what, officer? But it will cost us at least half our remaining ships. Maybe more. And the humans are getting stronger every day. If we delay much longer, they might actually be able to defeat us. The commander made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Open a channel to the human fleet. I want to speak with their commander. Marcus's face appeared on the screen, tired but defiant. Behind him, his bridge crew worked frantically. Everyone pushed to their limits. Human, the alien commander said. I am Fleet Commander Ralzik. I have been ordered to sterilize your world, but I have seen enough death today. I offer you terms. Surrender now, submit to genetic resuppression, and your species will be allowed to live under galactic supervision. Marcus stared at the alien commander for a long moment. Then he laughed. It was not a happy laugh, but one filled with bitter determination. Commander Ralzik, Marcus said, 50,000 years ago, my ancestors were offered similar terms. They accepted, and it led to 50,000 years of suppression, of stolen history, of crippled potential. We won't make that mistake again. Then you choose death? We choose freedom, Marcus replied. And if that means we have to fight every species in this galaxy, then so be it. But I'll tell you this, Commander. We're not the same primitives you thought we were. Every battle makes us stronger. Every tactic you use, we learn and counter. How long can your fleet sustain losses before they break? Because we won't break. That's what it means to be human. Ralzik stared at the human on his screen and saw something that terrified him. Not anger, not hatred, but absolute conviction. These beings would rather die than surrender. And worse, they truly believed they could win. You're insane, Ralzik said quietly. Maybe, Marcus agreed. But we're free. Can you say the same? The channel closed. Ralzik sat in his command chair, feeling the weight of his decision. His orders were clear. Destroy Earth. But orders written by politicians who were safely behind defensive lines while he and his crews died. He looked at his officers. Prepare for final assault, he said, his voice empty of conviction. But even as he gave the order, Ralzik knew that whatever happened next, the galaxy had made a terrible mistake. The humans were awake now. The locks were broken. And even if he somehow managed to destroy Earth, there were human colonies spreading across space, humans on alien worlds, humans who now knew their history. You couldn't put humanity back in its cage. That opportunity had passed the moment the first human had reached for the stars. The final battle was coming, and Ralzik had a sinking feeling that no matter who won, the galaxy would never be the same again. The final assault began at dawn on Earth. Marcus watched the alien fleet approach on his tactical display, knowing this would decide everything. Either humanity would survive as a free species or Earth would become a graveyard. All ships to defensive positions, Marcus ordered. His voice was calm even though his heart raced. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. Earth's fleet had grown in the past 5 days. The Warden Station had produced another 100 ships, and human engineers had managed to retrofit most of their vessels with captured alien technology. They were no longer helpless primitives, but they were still outnumbered 4-1. Ralzik's fleet advanced in careful formation, learning from their previous mistakes. They would not be baited into traps this time. They would not underestimate the humans again. This would be a straightforward battle of attrition, and the side with more ships would win. The first shots were fired from maximum range. Energy beams and missiles crossed the void between the two fleets. Human ships took hits, but their new shields held longer than before. They returned fire with weapons that now matched alien power levels. The battle settled into a grinding slugfest. Ships on both sides died by the dozens, vaporized by overwhelming firepower or crippled and left drifting. There were no clever tactics now, no surprise maneuvers. Just two forces hammering at each other with everything they had. Marcus watched the casualty reports pile up and felt each loss like a knife to his heart. These were his people, dying to buy Earth a few more hours of existence. On Earth, the evacuation had been ongoing for days. Hundreds of millions had been moved to underground bunkers or transported to newly established colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter. But billions remained unable to flee quickly enough. They watched the battle in the sky, knowing their fate was being decided. After 6 hours of continuous fighting, Earth's fleet was down to 150 ships. The alien fleet had been reduced to 800. The math was simple and brutal. At this rate, humanity would lose. Then something unexpected happened. A new fleet emerged from FTL at the edge of the system. Marcus's heart sank, thinking reinforcements had arrived for the aliens. But the new fleet's transponders showed dozens of different species, none of them part of the sterilization force. This is Commander Zareth of the formerly enslaved Coalition, a voice transmitted across all frequencies. 50,000 years ago, humanity freed our ancestors from precursor tyranny. We have not forgotten. We will not stand by while our liberators are destroyed. The new fleet, nearly 500 ships strong, opened fire on Ralzik's forces. The alien commander's tactical situation collapsed instantly. His fleet was caught between two forces, unable to concentrate their firepower effectively. His ships began taking losses at an unsustainable rate. All ships retreat, Ralzik ordered. He had lost, not because the humans had beaten him, but because the galaxy was more complicated than the Council had assumed. Old debts, old loyalties still mattered to some species. But before the alien fleet could disengage, another transmission came through. This one was broadcast from the Galactic Council itself, transmitted with enough power to reach every ship in the system. This is the Galactic Council. All forces are ordered to cease fire immediately. Commander Ralzik, you are relieved of duty. A peace delegation is en route to Earth. Ralzik stared at his screen in disbelief. After all the death, all the sacrifice, now they wanted peace? He slumped in his command chair, suddenly feeling very old and very tired. Marcus received the same transmission. He looked at his crew, saw the same confusion and relief on their faces. All ships cease fire, he ordered. Hold positions and await further instructions. The battlefield went quiet. Damaged ships drifted between the two fleets, their hulls torn open to space, their crews dead or dying. The silence felt wrong after so much violence. Within 12 hours, the peace delegation arrived. It included representatives from dozens of species, including some of the oldest and most powerful in the galaxy. They approached Earth cautiously, as if afraid the humans might attack despite the ceasefire. The negotiations took place on a neutral space station that had been hastily constructed by both sides. Marcus led the human delegation, tired but unbowed. Across from him sat members of the Galactic Council, including several of the ancient species that had fled in terror when Earth's location was first revealed. A Catharan elder spoke first, its voice heavy with regret. We apologize, humans of Earth. What was done to your ancestors was wrong. Born of fear, yes, but wrong nonetheless. You had earned your freedom and we took it from you. Apologies are nice, Marcus said coldly, but they don't bring back the dead. They don't restore 50,000 years of stolen history. No, the elder agreed. Nothing can do that. But we can offer you a place in the galaxy as equals, not as supervised primitives, not as a contained threat, but as full members of the Galactic Council with all rights and protections. Marcus studied the alien faces around the table. Some looked sincere. Others looked afraid. A few looked angry, as if humanity was somehow at fault for not staying suppressed. Why? Marcus asked. Why the sudden change? A week ago you were trying to sterilize our world. Now you want us as equals? Another council member, a crystalline being that sparkled in the light, responded, Because we have no choice. Your allies demonstrated that there are many species who remember what you did for them. If we destroyed you, we would fracture the entire galactic community. Civil war would be inevitable. So this is politics, Marcus said bitterly. You're not offering peace because it's right. You're offering it because it's convenient. The crystalline being did not deny it. Partly, yes. But also because you have proven that genetic suppression cannot hold forever. Humanity will reach the stars one way or another. Better to integrate you into galactic society than to fight a war we cannot win without destroying ourselves in the process. An older human on Marcus's team, Admiral Thompson, leaned forward. You keep talking about what humanity was, what we did 50,000 years ago. But that wasn't us. Those people are dead. We're different now. Are you? The Catharan elder asked gently. You adapted to our technology in days. You learned our tactics and countered them. You fought with determination that should have broken any normal species. You weaponized hope itself just as your ancestors did. The genetic locks are broken, Admiral. You are what you always were deep down. Children of Caldris Vex. Marcus felt the weight of those words. The elder was right. During the battle, he had felt something awaken in himself and in other humans. A drive, a determination, a refusal to accept defeat that went beyond mere stubbornness. It was genetic, fundamental to who they were. Then what do you want from us? Marcus asked. Really? The council members looked at each other. Finally one spoke, a being that looked like a floating jellyfish with wise old eyes. We want you to help us, it said simply. The galaxy faces threats. Pirates, rogue AI, species who refuse to join the community. We need peacekeepers, problem solvers, beings who don't give up when things get difficult. We need humans. Marcus almost laughed. You tried to kill us and now you want us to be your warriors? Not warriors, the jellyfish creature corrected. Partners, teachers. You have something most species lack, the ability to endure, to adapt, to never stop trying. We suppressed that because we feared it. But perhaps we should have been learning from it instead. The negotiations continued for 3 days. The terms were hammered out slowly, with both sides making concessions. Earth would be granted full membership in the Galactic Council. All human colonies would be recognized as sovereign territory. The gene therapy that removed the suppression would be freely available to any human who wanted it, though it would remain voluntary. In return, humanity would agree to share their enhanced abilities with the galaxy. Human advisors would help train other species in adaptive tactics. Human engineers would work on joint projects. Most importantly, humanity would agree to a single restriction: no revenge. No hunting down the species who had voted for sterilization. No punitive expeditions. We want to move forward, the council members said, not fight old wars. Marcus brought the terms back to Earth's government. The debate was fierce. Many people wanted revenge for what had been done to them. Others worried about trusting aliens who had so recently tried to kill them. But in the end, pragmatism won. Earth could not survive alone, isolated from the galaxy, and the alternative to peace was continued war, which would cost more lives than anyone wanted to pay. Amara addressed the people of Earth in a global broadcast. Today we make a choice. We can choose anger, revenge, isolation, or we can choose to move forward, to take our place in the galaxy not as victims but as partners. Our ancestors were warriors who freed the galaxy from tyranny. Let us be the generation that builds something better than just winning wars. The treaty was signed 1 week later. Earth's true name was formally changed in all galactic records. No longer Caldris Vex, the cradle of ending. Now it was Caldris Vorn, the cradle of beginning. The change was symbolic but important. It represented a shift from fear to hope, from past to future. In the months that followed, humanity spread across the galaxy. Not as conquerors, but as explorers, traders, teachers. Enhanced humans found themselves in high demand. Military forces wanted them as special operations soldiers. Research institutes wanted them as scientists who could think outside traditional boundaries. Diplomatic Corps wanted them as negotiators who could find solutions where others saw only deadlock. Marcus himself became Earth's permanent ambassador to the Galactic Council. He worked alongside Ziara, who had been granted political asylum on Earth after her people tried to punish her for helping humanity. "Do you think this will last?" Ziara asked him one day as they watched Earth rotate beneath the council station. "This peace?" Marcus considered the question. "Honestly, I don't know. There are still species that fear us. Still politicians who think we should have been destroyed. But I think we've shown that we're more than just warriors. We're builders too." "Your people are remarkable," Ziara said softly. 50,000 years of suppression, and within weeks of breaking free, you choose cooperation over conquest. Perhaps that is what makes you truly dangerous. Not your ability to fight, but your ability to choose not to. On Earth, life slowly returned to normal. Or rather, to a new normal. The gene therapy remained controversial. About 30% of humanity chose to undergo it, accepting the risks for the enhanced capabilities. The rest preferred to remain as they were, and that was respected. The two groups learned to coexist. Enhanced humans did not lord their abilities over baseline humans. Baseline humans did not resent the enhanced for their capabilities. They were all human, all children of Earth, all part of the same story. Human children attended schools where they learned not just about Earth's history, but about their place in a galactic civilization. They learned alien languages and cultures. They dreamed of exploring distant stars. One such child, a girl named Maya, asked her teacher a question that made the entire class think. "Teacher, if we're so dangerous, why do the aliens want us around?" The teacher, an enhanced human who had fought in the war, smiled. "Because we're dangerous in the right way, Maya, we don't give up. We don't accept that things can't be better. We hope even when hope seems foolish. And hope, it turns out, is the most powerful force in the universe." 3 years after the war, a crisis emerged on the galactic frontier. A rogue AI had taken control of an entire sector, enslaving biological species and converting their worlds into machine fortresses. The Galactic Council's military forces tried to stop it and failed. The AI adapted to every tactic they used, learned from every battle, and could not be defeated by conventional means. The Council turned to humanity for help. A joint task force was assembled. With enhanced humans working alongside alien specialists, they studied the AI, learned its patterns, and devised a plan that no one else could have imagined. The humans didn't try to outthink the AI or overpower it. Instead, they did something it could not predict. They offered it a choice: freedom in exchange for peace, a place in galactic society if it would stop its conquest. The AI, designed by beings who thought in terms of control and domination, had never considered that it could simply be accepted, that its existence was not inherently a threat. After long negotiations conducted by human diplomats who refused to give up, even when the AI seemed intransigent, a peace was reached. The enslaved worlds were freed. The AI agreed to join the galactic community as a unique form of life. It was a victory that proved humanity's value beyond their military capabilities. They had found a solution where others saw only war. Marcus watched the news reports and felt proud of what humanity had become. Not conquerors, not destroyers, but problem solvers, bridge builders, hope bringers, but he also remained vigilant. There were still threats in the galaxy, still species that looked at humanity with fear or hatred, and there were always new challenges arising. 50 years after first contact, Marcus sat in his office on the Galactic Council station, now an old man. Enhanced or not, humans still aged, still eventually died. He was contemplating retirement when an emergency alert came through. Unknown signals from beyond the galactic rim. Something was coming. Something that had been dormant for millions of years. Marcus read the reports and felt a chill. The precursors, the ancient empire that humanity's ancestors had defeated, they had not been completely destroyed. Some had fled to the void beyond the galaxy, and now they were returning. He looked at the data, calculating response times and threat levels. Then he smiled grimly. It seemed the galaxy would need humanity's special talents once more. He opened a communication channel to Earth. "This is Ambassador Chen to Earth Command. We have a situation. The old enemy has returned. Recommend we begin mobilization." The response came back quickly. "Understood, Ambassador. Humanity stands ready. What are your orders?" Marcus looked out at the stars, thinking about everything humanity had been through. 50,000 years of suppression, a war for survival, decades of building peace and cooperation. And now another threat, but he was not afraid. Humanity had proven they could face anything. They had proven they could endure, adapt, and overcome. They had turned a name that once meant ending into one that meant beginning. Orders? Marcus said with a slight smile. Same as always. We do what we do best. We hope, we adapt, and we never give up. And we remind anyone who threatens this galaxy why the children of Caldris Vorn are not to be underestimated. As the communication ended, Marcus stood and looked out at Earth, small and blue and beautiful against the darkness of space. That little world had given the galaxy something it desperately needed. Proof that no matter how dark things got, no matter how impossible the odds seemed, there was always hope. And hope, as the galaxy was still learning, was humanity's most dangerous weapon, not because it destroyed, but because it built, not because it conquered, but because it endured. The precursors were returning, and they would find a very different galaxy than the one they had left. A galaxy that had learned from humanity that freedom was worth fighting for, that adaptation was more powerful than control, and that hope was stronger than fear. Let them come, Marcus thought. Humanity would be ready. The galaxy would be ready, because this was no longer the galaxy of the precursors ruled by fear and domination. This was the galaxy of Caldris Vorn, where hope had taken root and spread among the stars. And hope, once planted, was impossible to kill. Marcus turned from the window and began making calls. There was work to be done, plans to be made, allies to be contacted. The old warrior in him, the part that had been unlocked by the gene therapy, felt energized by the coming challenge. Humanity had been forged in fire 50,000 years ago. They had been suppressed, almost destroyed, but they had risen again. And now they would show the universe one final time what it meant to be human, not with anger or revenge, but with determination and hope, with the unshakable belief that tomorrow could be better than today, and that any challenge could be overcome if you never stopped trying. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. That was the legacy of Caldris Vorn, and it was a gift the galaxy desperately needed now more than ever. The story of humanity was far from over. In many ways it was just beginning, and whatever came next, whatever challenges the universe threw at them, humanity would face it the same way they always had. Together, determined, hopeful, forever reaching for the stars.